Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are doing the November predictions. We're talking about the month of November 2020. We only have 2 months left of 2020. November, December. Yeah, like 2 months, kind of like 3 months. But we're going to get into what November has in store for us as a collective, as well as for your zodiac sign. We're going to unpack the events happening in November and really see how that influences our lives on a regular basis and really how it transforms our lives in November. So speaking of transformation in November, I'll just get into the list of events. So I'll make a list of the events, put it on the screen. I'll also have this list on Instagram, on my Instagram at AstroKit, and I do like daily updates about the events, so Instagram has that as well. But on the screen, as you can see, a list of events. This is based on sidereal astrology. So as I get into this video and predictions for your specific sign, you can use your sidereal rising sign, that's the most accurate for this video, or sidereal moon sign. Usually whatever your tropical sign is, it gets pushed back one sign. So if you're like a Libra rising, then you'd probably watch the Virgo rising prediction. But I will put a sidereal chart calculator down below so you guys can check that out to make sure what you should watch this for. But these dates on the screen are for the sidereal dates, so the dates are a little bit different from tropical. So hey Aries, so let's get into your prediction for November. So this is for sidereal Aries rising. This will be most accurate for sidereal Aries moons as well, or Aries rising. So I would recommend watching it for sidereal rising sign for the most accurate prediction. And so if you're watching this, you're probably a tropical Taurus rising, but sometimes it gets pushed back into Aries. So usually you're either a Taurus or an Aries in tropical astrology. For you Aries, we're going to talk about what your life looks like in November and the major events happening in your life that are going to trigger a lot of change in your life on a regular basis throughout the month. So in November, speaking of change, it does bring up this huge theme of transformation, this huge theme of shifting, and not just like little tiny shifts or minor detail sort of shifts, but like major life-changing events are going to happen in the collective, and it's going to happen in our lives as well. So let's get into what part of your life is changing, how your fate is changing, how your destiny is changing in November. So what's significant for you Aries in November that I actually really want to point out to you is that Mars is going direct in November, finally. Mars has been retrograde for the past couple months. It's been quite chaotic, and Mars is your ruling planet. So Mars rules your chart. Mars is a quite important planet for you. And so Mars is going direct in your 12th house of Pisces. Now this can be quite the challenging aspect, not as challenging as it was when it was retrograde, but it can be a little bit challenging in the sense that it does trigger a bit of feeling a little bit lethargic or feeling really private, hidden. 12th house does rule that theme of isolation. So in November, especially starting the month and throughout the month, because Mars is going to be in Pisces in your 12th house for the rest of the year, you might be feeling a little bit more isolated, a little bit more withdrawn, turned inward, really focus on your inward journey, a little bit more lonely, isolated, because that 12th house energy does trigger that within your life. So that's kind of like the general energy I would give to you in November, and something you're going to feel consistently throughout November. But let's get into these events and really see what these events trigger in your life. So the first event I really want to talk to you guys about is the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction. So this is a huge event in astrology. Jupiter and Pluto went conjunct earlier this year in January, and that's kind of like when Corona started, and that kind of triggered that coronavirus energy. But Jupiter is going to be conjunct Pluto again in November. So this does trigger an amplification of power and amplification of expansion. Pluto is that planet that does amplify things, it does transform things. Jupiter is about expansion, and having one of the most malefic planets conjunct one of the most benefic planets does trigger a huge shift in a more positive tone, I would say. So this is happening, this conjunction of Jupiter and Pluto on November 12th is happening in your 9th house. So this means there's going to be a huge shift of power as it pertains to your beliefs, as it pertains to what your beliefs are, especially in a spiritual sense. I think we talked about in the nodal shift video, you're having kind of like a spiritual journey right now. You're really strongly on that journey. So ninth house does deal with travel as well. It deals with destiny and purpose and opportunities. So I feel for you, Aries, that you are going to have a shift in your destiny, a shift in your fate, a shift in what you believe. Because once your mind changes about something, I feel like that's when your life changes to match your inner beliefs about the world. And so there might be an amplified gain as well in education. You might go to your dream school, dream program. You might get into some program that you've been really wanting to get into. If you've been having your eyes set on some sort of academic achievement, this is sort of the energy of achieving something really strongly or powerfully academically. So that's really strong for you, especially if you're in university, because what I said, university, which is ruled by the ninth house. Okay, so Scorpio season starts on November 15th. Sidereally. So the sun will be going into your 8th house, which activates a lot of shadow work for you. It activates this transformation of your subconscious mind. And in the beginning, we talked about how Mars is going to be in your 12th house. 12th house also represents subconscious, and 8th house does as well. They're both water houses. And so November for you, Aries, is going to be a lot about how you manage and navigate your subconscious baggage, how you do your shadow work. You're probably going to be doing a lot of shadow work in November, really delving deep into your own self. It might feel a little bit lonely. In fact, it probably will be really lonely, but I feel like that's really what a spiritual journey is kind of about, is being really alone and having that solitude to find yourself within, and not try to find yourself in other places that are outside of yourself. So doing that shadow work, there's going to be a lot of transformation to your subconscious mind, your thoughts, how you speak to yourself, how you think about life, your perspective, whether or not you're optimistic. And on a mundane level, you're finding the value in other people, finding the value within yourself, doing some worth work, self-worth, shadow work, etc. The list goes on, but just know it's kind of like doing those behind the scenes tactics, behind the scenes housekeeping for you, Aries. So the new moon is on the 15th as well. So this new moon does trigger a new sense of beginnings in relationships for you. The new moon's happening on the cusp of your 7th house and 8th house. So definitely you are considering who you partner with, what you allow in partnerships, how strong and how powerful that partnership is. I feel like November is really about power and what our power is, how we share that power with people. Do we give our power away? So especially for you, Aries, you are considering like, what is your own power? What power do you hold in relationships? Is the person you're with powerful, etc.? So there's a lot of themes around power and your own inner power as well going on in November. And expect maybe even, I would say, strong, powerful connections with people or strong, powerful breakups. I feel like with Scorpio energy, Scorpio season, it can go both ways. Scorpio rules extremes, so you can either have like a really strong falling out with someone or a really strong reunion with someone. It can go really either way depending on your life. And then last but not least, we end the month with Jupiter going into Capricorn. So I might do a separate post about this on my Instagram, but I'll touch on it now, where it does trigger a new sense of career goals for you specifically because it's happening in your 10th house. So Jupiter goes direct in your 10th house of Capricorn, and you are starting a new discipline, a new business structure. I feel like a lot of Aries are starting their own business, especially in these latter months of the year. And this is the time where you really lay down the foundation for that business, start a new business. It's really great. A really great time for you to succeed professionally, Aries. So with that being said, you guys can follow me on Instagram, AstroKit. Comment down below your Halloween costume if you're dressing up this year, and I'll see you, Aries, in my next video. Hey Leo, so let's get into the month of November and talk about what the month has in store for you on a personal level. On a collective level, I talked about the major events happening in November in the first timestamp, and I would say November, it's really about transformation, it's about change and power. So there's a huge shift of power going on in November, a huge shift in general, and this whole year has been about shifts, but I feel like November is really like that culmination tower moment. And I'm going to talk about what that means for you in your personal life and what changes are going to happen in your life based on your rising sign. So this is for sidereal Leo rising, sidereal Leo moon. You can watch it for either moon or rising, but I would say it's more relevant and accurate for sidereal Leo rising. You're probably a tropical Virgo rising if you're watching this. So anyway, so let's get into it. So I'll get into the events and kind of talk about your overall month and how these specific events manifest. So in November, we kick off the month. Mercury does go direct, and it goes direct in the sign of Libra. So that's a nice relieving transit because Mercury has been retrograde for almost like the entire month of October, and it's retrograde as we speak right now. And then also Mars goes direct on November 13th. So in the beginning of the month, Mars and Mercury, after they've been retrograde, goes direct. And then the first event I really want to touch on is Jupiter conjunct Pluto. So this is one of the biggest events, I would say, of the year, and really of November, because Jupiter and Pluto conjunct each other every so often. I think it's only every like a few decades, and they were conjunct earlier this year in January when coronavirus really kind of started, and they're going to go conjunct. They're going to be conjunct again on November 12th, and this is happening in your 5th house. And so Jupiter is the planet of expansion. It's the most benefic planet, and then Pluto is the planet of amplification, of transformation, of power. And so having one of the most malefic planets conjunct one of the most benefic planets in astrology at one time really represents this amplification of expansion, of power, this shift of power, this amplified gain of some sort. So let's talk about what that means for you. So with this conjunction in your 5th house, you're going to feel this shift of power when it comes to your passions, your creativity, what you find to be your true love in life. When it comes to 5th house, it shows what we really are passionate about, what we love to do, what's our true hobbies. And I feel like you're going to have a shift and some sort of powerful gain as it pertains to a creative idea, creative project. 5th house is the natural house of Leo, so this is really an auspicious transit for you where you do gain some sort of insightful idea, lucrative idea, some sort of creative idea. 5th house is about creativity, even some sort of new idea or a new passionate belief, a new passion. So there's some sort of, I would say, powerful resurgence in your creative expression in November with this transit. And then also there's an amplified gain in knowledge, in status, and reputation. This conjunction is happening opposite your 11th house, I would say, of status and reputation. So there can be a amplified gain in status, reputation. Rahu is in your 10th house right now. So there's definitely that, I would say, trajectory of you getting recognized, being recognized, and having more of a status emphasis on your life in November, and with the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction. And then on November 15th, Scorpio season starts. And so Scorpio season is happening in your 4th house. So this means definitely transformation of your home life. You might move homes. This is kind of like the energy of you moving apartments, moving homes in November, making the plans for that. You might even move very suddenly. If you guys are settled where you are, there might just be some sort of extreme renovation to your home or extreme change in your home, especially dealing with money. So you might want to watch out for that a little bit. I feel like that can manifest either really great or really badly. When it comes to Scorpio energy, Scorpio season, it rules extremes. So you can have extreme good luck, for example, finding a new apartment, new home, or you can have a little bit of misfortune when it comes to like maybe like your rent being taxed or some sort of unexpected expense when it comes to a home or something along those lines. So you can kind of think about those two extremes, but I would say it's a little bit more positive since Jupiter is going to be in the mix here. But there might be some sort of metaphorical death to your past, metaphorical death to what you once knew. 4th house metaphorically is all about the past. So I feel like definitely for you, Leo, you are kind of putting away your past or having a funeral for your past in November. I feel like Scorpio season rules that theme of death. So putting a death to things that are behind you and just really trudging forward. Rahu in your 10th house makes you want to really like go forward, achieve, and never look back. So definitely November is that month where you're having that huge shift of like, okay, I'm done with thinking about the past, I'm moving forward now. And so that brings me into the new moon in Libra. So the new moon is really unique this month because usually the new moon would be in Scorpio, but it's kind of like in the last degrees of Libra in the lunar mansion of Vishaka. And so this is happening in your third house, so you can expect maybe random trips, road trips, even planning some sort of mini vacation, staycation, some sort of kind of getaway you might be scheduling, or just taking a lot of road trips, driving a lot, etc. You might even be working on new work projects. So you might be launching some sort of new work project. With that fifth house energy, I sense that you have a new creative idea that is very lucrative, and then you turn it into some sort of project, and then maybe you even monetize it as well. Your 10th house is so activated right now. I can see you guys being really successful with launching a new business, new work project, new creative project, etc. And if you guys aren't business owners yet, or if you don't have your own business, this is a great time to start it in the month of November. You would be very successful with it in November. And so Jupiter does go into Capricorn in November on November 20th. And so this is powerful because Jupiter has been in Sagittarius sidereally for the past several months. And Jupiter going into Capricorn, it goes into your 6th house. And so this means that you're setting more discipline around your health, your routine, your work. You're getting a lot of groundedness. I feel like sixth house does deal a lot with health and grounding ourselves to a practical routine and grounding ourselves into a logical sense of how we do things. And so this really goes with that energy of you having a lot of creative ideas, passions, etc., and then having the discipline to start that, or having the discipline to work on that in a serious manner. Your 10th house is activated, your 6th house is activated with Jupiter and Saturn in November, and the 10th house and 6th house is connected in astrology. So definitely there's that strong theme of career, discipline, maybe even getting a new job, getting your dream job, and being a lot more healthy and disciplined about how you spend your money, how you operate your life, and really almost like tying down the hatches, or like wrapping up the hatches, so to speak. And so you can expect maybe even moving to a new location for a lot of Leos, or just moving into a new direction in your life, metaphorically, and essentially putting an end to your past and starting a whole new journey. So with that being said, if you guys are dressing up this year, comment down below and tell me your Halloween costume. Also follow me on Instagram at AstroKit, and I will see you Leos in my next video. Sagittarius, so let's get into the month of November and talk about what November has in store for you on a personal level. So collectively, when it comes to November, it's really this month that is all about shifts. It's about transformation. It's about change as well as power. So in November, Scorpio season does start on the 15th in sidereal astrology. And so those traditional Scorpio themes are very relevant in November. And in the first timestamp of this video, we talked about the specific events going on and how they trigger those changes. But let's get into how that really influences your personal life, Sagittarius, and what specific transformation is going on in your life, and what parts of your life will be transformed by the end of November. So when it comes to November, it is more of a fortunate month just because Mercury goes direct on the 3rd and Mars goes direct in Pisces on the 12th. Or it goes direct in Pisces on the 13th. So with all of the planets going direct, it's more of a relieving energy. So let's get into the first event, which is a really powerful one and really kicks off the month with this theme of transformation. So on November 12th, Jupiter is going to be conjunct Pluto. So this is a really important event in astrology. It doesn't happen often. It happened earlier this year. In January, and that's when the coronavirus was kind of triggered and the whole epidemic kind of happened in January, or started in January. And so this conjunction is happening yet again, and it's really powerful just because Pluto is the planet of transformation. Pluto is the planet that is known to amplify things. Jupiter is the planet that does expand things. So there's this huge energy, if you can kind of picture it, of a huge shift, and not just like a small shift, but a huge amplification of something, a huge shift in power of something, a huge transformation in fate and destiny and how we perceive things. And so you're having this conjunction of Jupiter and Pluto in your first house, Sagittarius. So this is something that isn't very light. It's nothing to play with for you, because you're going to feel it the most strong, or you're going to feel it very strongly. Retrograde, you guys. But you're going to feel it probably the strongest because it's in your first house. And I forgot to mention, this is for sidereal signs. So sidereal Sagittarius rising, you're probably a tropical Capricorn watching this. But with sidereal Sagittarius, you're having this conjunction in your first house. So you're going to have this huge shift in power within yourself, with how you see yourself. It's almost like on November 12th and kind of like those days around it, you're going to have this epiphany where it's like, okay, this is who I am. This is how powerful I am. This is how confident I am. You're going to have this huge boost in how you feel about yourself, and almost like wake up and realize, like, I can take over the world. I can do what I want. Sagittarius is that sign that I feel like you are a high achiever. And in November, you're going to be achieving a lot and having that willpower, that almost like unstoppable energy towards achieving what you want in this life. And then also you might have an amplified glow up. So first house is the house of appearance. It's the house of physical appearance. So you might even change your appearance drastically in November. Cut your hair, shave your head, new hair, makeup, etc. But you might really change your appearance to match this new version of yourself that is manifesting in November, which is very powerful for you. So you are really changing on a personal level, Sagittarius, in November. So that brings me into Scorpio season. So Scorpio season officially starts November 15th. The sun moves into Scorpio in sidereal astrology. So you're having Scorpio season in your 12th house. So this means your awareness, your attention is going to be really focused inward. You're going to be feeling really reflective, very introspective, maybe even a little bit isolated, focusing on your own spiritual journey. I really feel like Scorpio season and like the latter half of November for you, Sagittarius, is about transforming your subconscious mind. I feel like if there's one word to describe September or November for you, is empowerment, and really empowering yourself on an internal level, not just getting a new outfit or getting a new look together to feel beautiful, but like really empowering yourself and empowering your soul from within is what I see for Sagittarius. And really doing that through your spiritual work, through affirmations, through meditations, yoga, whatever your spiritual practice preference is, really delving into that and investing into your own spiritual well-being and empowering yourself and your soul from a very deep level. And you're going to be so transformed by the end of November. It's really exciting to think about. So that brings me to the new moon. So the new moon is happening in the very late degrees of Libra. It's kind of like on the cusp of Libra and Scorpio. But it's happening in your 11th house. So there's going to be a new, I would say, social connection you make that really changes your life. A new beneficial contact you make. So 11th house does deal with kind of like benefactors and people that help us indirectly, or kind of like powerful, influential people is ruled by the 11th house. So when you have the new moon there, I feel like you're going to be in contact with those kind of people. If you have your goal set on something to achieve on a higher sort of level, you will achieve that higher status, gain that help up, someone giving you a hand, bringing you up the ladder, the social ladder, and really achieving that status, recognition through the help of someone else. So you might gain status and popularity, especially with this new moon energy, or that's a good intention to set with this new moon. Also, a windfall of money might come your way definitely in November. 11th house rules lump sums of money, whereas second house deals with smaller increments of money, consistent money, which I'll talk about in a second because your second house will be activated too. But with 11th house, it deals with large windfalls of money. So I do see you guys gaining opportunities for making new money, especially as it pertains to contact with people that are influential. So you might meet someone influential, they give you a new opportunity, you gain some sort of huge windfall of money in November. You guys can expect that definitely, and rise in status and popularity, especially with the 11th house activation. And then last but not least, I will talk about this Jupiter moving into Capricorn. So mind you, Jupiter is your chart ruler. and Jupiter is going to be conjunct Pluto. We talked about that, so you are feeling the brunt of this November energy because it's happening directly in your first house, but Jupiter is going direct in Capricorn on the 20th. So although Jupiter is going to be conjunct Pluto in Sagittarius, is going to move into Capricorn by the end of the month, and so it's going into your second house. So you will be having a new focus on structuring your finances. There might be a huge gain with finances again, or even just gaining some sort of financial plan, some sort of financial foundation. Second house is more like grounded money that is like consistent, like I said, but 11th house is more like sporadic lump sum sort of money. So you can kind of expect both things to manifest, of like consistent money and lump sum sort of money. But either way, money is emphasized for you, gaining money through careers, through benefactors, through investors, opportunities. You will have a lot of opportunities come your way in October, in November, and really you will gain a lot from other people, gain a lot through your social networks, and there will be a lot of financial gain for you in November, Sagittarius. You guys can expect that. So with that being said, if you're dressing up for Halloween this year, comment down below your costume. Also follow me on Instagram at AstroKit, and I'll see you, Sagittarius, in my next video. Okay, Taurus, so let's get into the month of November and talk about what it has in store for you. So November, in a few words, it really is about this theme or themes of power, of transformation, and major life changes. In the first timestamp of this video, I talked about the key events going on in the month, and we're going to talk about how those major events really trigger a sense of change in your life. It is sidereal Scorpio season starting on the 15th of November, and those are the traditional themes of Scorpio: power, transformation, change, etc. So we're going to really see that trickle into our lives, and we're going to talk about how your life is going to shift in November. And this is really powerful for you just because you're a Taurus rising watching this, and Scorpio is your sister sign. So you will probably feel these changes very strongly because Scorpio is a part of your sister sign polarity. And so with that being said, this is most accurate for sidereal Taurus rising. You're probably a tropical Gemini rising watching this. Usually your sign shifts one sign back in sidereal, but a lot of times it does stay the same if you're a late degree Taurus rising. So either way, Taurus rising, Taurus moon, this is relevant for. So with that being said, let's just get into these events. Right away, right out the gate, on November 3rd, Mercury goes direct, and then also November 13th, Mars goes direct in Pisces. And so that's really relieving energy just after those two planets have been retrograde for the past few weeks, and they're going direct finally in November. And in November, I believe all planets are direct, so it's more of a happier transit for most of us, just because retrograde energy has been really plaguing us the whole year, but we get that relief in November. So the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction is probably the biggest event of the year, or one of the biggest events of the year, where Jupiter and Pluto, the most benefic... So the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction is a really significant event in astrology in general, just because Jupiter is the most benefic planet, and then Pluto can be considered as one of the most malefic planets, where Pluto represents transformation, change, amplification of things, and Jupiter is about expansion, abundance, and good fortune. So when we get those two planets working together, we do see a really powerful, influential, almost like bone-curdling or soul-curdling sort of change, where it's like not a small change taking place, but a huge life change taking place, a subconscious change taking place. And so this change is happening in your 8th house. So with Jupiter and Pluto conjunct, it does deal with the sense of amplification of things. And so 8th house energy does deal with transformation, and it does deal with extreme shifts in fortune. So for you, Taurus, you might experience in November a shift in power as it pertains to your partnerships, as it pertains to money. I can see you guys like gaining some sort of large lump sum from someone in November unexpectedly. So you can gain an unexpected inheritance, unexpected insurance check, especially around like the 12th, 13th, 14th. And if you guys play like any sort of like lottery at all or like scratching games, I feel like you out of any zodiac sign would probably like gain money from that, because 8th house does rule kind of like lottery or like extreme gains of money, right? And then Jupiter Pluto conjunction does trigger that sense of extreme amplification. So you guys can expect some sort of extreme gain through other people. And if you have been waiting on some sort of gain from someone, like an inheritance, insurance check, something that's like owed to you, for example, you're going to get that in November, maybe even unexpectedly. So that's what that Jupiter-Pluto energy conjunction in your 8th house does manifest as for you. And then also Scorpio season starts on the 15th. So the sun moves into Scorpio sidereally on the 15th, and it goes into your 7th house. So we talked about this in the nodal shift video, but you are experiencing a lot of kind of tumultuous happenings with relationships right now, where you are like breaking up with people, you're cutting people off, even family members. I've heard from a lot of Taurus. And so that's going to continue throughout the rest of the year, I would say, for you, Taurus. And especially in November, you're going to see this manifestation of you being really aware and focused on, okay, kind of taking an inventory of like who's in my life, who's not in my life, really making those boundaries very clear with people. Again, Scorpio does bring a lot of transformation, change, extreme ups and downs, and that is your sister sign. So you can kind of expect maybe extreme instances with partners. So a lot of you guys might be breaking up with people in kind of like a blow up sort of way or extreme sort of way, maybe even breaking up with toxic people, having a toxic breakup, so to speak. Some of you guys can be reuniting with people in an intense way. So Scorpio is nothing short of intensity, as you probably can imagine, since it is your sister sign. But you might experience a lot of that intensity throughout Scorpio season, throughout November, especially the latter half of November, and being really aware of who's in your life, who's not in your life, and really transforming your relationships overall. And it's really based on this new sense of self that you have, this new sense of who you are. We talked about this new identity shift in the nodal shift video with the North Node moving into Taurus in your 1st house. And this new identity is really shaping the new partnerships that are going to be formed for you. But November, I feel like it's really about cutting out the dead weight, so to speak. And that brings me into the new moon. So the new moon brings in this new energy pertaining to Scorpio themes, pertaining to Libra themes too, because the new moon is in the latter degrees of Libra. It's kind of like on the cusp of Libra and Scorpio. But it's happening in your 6th house. So you will be setting new goals as it pertains to health, discipline, what you eat, what you consume. There's this kind of, I would say, transformational aspect and powerful amplification of your habits and how productive they are, and introducing more, I would say, productive habits in your life. I feel like almost for you, Taurus, in November, it's kind of like this no nonsense, no BS sort of month where it's like, okay, I'm done messing with people. I'm done. I'm not dealing with their BS. I'm not dealing with them. I'm prioritizing myself, my goals, and you're really disciplined about that in November, and you're not waxing or waning from that track you're on of being really self-motivated and really motivated towards your own productive growth as a person. And so you're going to really feel that initiated with the new moon in Scorpio. It's really in Libra, but it's kind of like on that cusp on the 15th. And then on Jupiter, okay, retrograde, hello. But on November 20th, Jupiter goes into Capricorn. So Jupiter has been in Sagittarius for a couple months. It's been kind of dancing between Jupiter has been dancing between Capricorn and Sagittarius, but it officially stations in the sign of Capricorn on the 20th of November, and it joins Saturn there as well. So this is happening in your 9th house. So you will be initiating this new cycle when it comes to beliefs, where you live, where you travel to, and having this new optimistic outlook. I feel like in November for you, Taurus, there's this huge like change of destiny, this change of fortune. 9th house is the house of destiny, fortune, and purpose. And so since you're having Jupiter, the benefic planet, go into your 9th house, you're going to experience that new shift of this new path that you're on, this new journey that you're on. 9th house does rule journeys. And I feel like you are going to be traveling by the end of the month, making travel plans even, and travel plans in the sense of like being really fed up with everyone around you, being fed up with toxic people you don't want to be around, cutting out those people, and sometimes you just need a break, right? So I feel like you will be planning some sort of travel trip. If you don't do that, maybe you are signing up for a new like school program, grad school program even, nursing program, anything like that. You might be investing into your education, like a new language program, a language teacher, a language tutor, anything having to do with the ninth house you will be focused on towards the end of the month and experience a little bit more benefic energy as it pertains to ninth house themes of travel, education, knowledge, beliefs, optimism, etc. So you are on this new journey, and it's starting in November, which is really exciting. And this shift really has to do with your perspective on life, prioritizing yourself, and your mental health as well. And November for you, Taurus, is really about this newfound respect for yourself and this newfound value you see in your own self. And your path moving forward in life is going to be really shaped around that newfound value and respect for yourself. So with that being said, comment down below your Halloween costume if you're dressing up this year, and head to my Instagram for more astrology content at AstroKit, and I'll see you, Taurus, in my next video. Hey Virgo, so let's get into the month of November and talk about what November has in store for you on a personal level. So we're going to do your prediction and get into these events happening in November and how they really influence you on a regular basis. And November, if we could put it into a few words, is really about powerful change, transformation, and shifts. So November in sidereal astrology, Scorpio season does start on November 15th. But however, we'll get into it in a second, how there's these strong themes of power at play in the collective and in our personal lives, as well as this theme of transformation, and really like these shifts in fortune going on with a lot of people. So let's get into your chart, Virgo, and talk about how this will manifest in your specific life. Now, with that being said, this is for sidereal Virgo risings, so you're probably a tropical Libra watching this, tropical Libra rising, but it's for sidereal Virgo rising or Virgo moon, so you can watch it for moon or rising sign. And if you're still unsure about your rising sign, I have the calculator down below, but let's just get into it. So when it comes to November, there's this huge relief of energy in the beginning of the month because Mercury and Mars goes direct. So Mercury goes direct in Libra, Mars goes direct in Pisces. They've been retrograde for the past month, which has been chaotic, to say the least, but this energy will be more straightforward, communication will be restored, our intentions will be restored with Mars going retrograde, and I feel like all the planets will be direct in November, if I'm not mistaken. So the entire year they have been retrograde, but now they are going direct. So let's get into these events happening. So the first event happening, which is probably the biggest event, one of the biggest events of this year and the month of November alone, which is Jupiter conjunct Pluto. So Jupiter will be conjunct the planet Pluto. Both those planets will be in the same degree on November 12th. And this is such a powerful source of energy because Jupiter is the most benefic planet in astrology, and then Pluto arguably is the most malefic. So when we have this benefic energy mixed with this malefic energy, you kind of get this amplification of expansion and transformation, which Pluto is about amplification, it is about transformation and change, and Jupiter does represent fortune, it represents expansion in a more positive sense. So this change will be more positive, I will say, but it does have that undertone of extremeness with the planet Pluto. And so Jupiter was conjunct Pluto earlier this year in January, and that's when kind of like coronavirus started. And it's going to be conjunct again, and in your personal chart, Virgo, it's going to be conjunct in your 4th house. So this does trigger a shift of power or powerful change as it pertains to your home life. So this might manifest as some sort of something in your family that happens that is extreme. I don't want to like predict deaths or anything, but there's kind of like that energy there, or extreme gain through family, maybe someone in your family gains something that they've been wanting, or like your mom gains something. 4th house does rule mother, it rules grandmother. So you can kind of picture that theme of extreme gain via your family, via your household. You might even move into your desired location. This is the energy of you like getting your dream apartment, being approved for your dream apartment, apartment hunting, and just finding this dazzling apartment that you've always wanted. If some of you Virgos are in like the moving process, moving homes, this is energy where you do kind of have a huge shift in fortune when it comes to finding that home that you want, apartments, etc. And on a more metaphorical level, you can expect shifts in power and change within your family. And also amplified gain from your family. So amplified gain in terms of like money from a random relative, an opportunity, etc., property, vehicles, things like that. So that brings me into Scorpio season. So Scorpio season starts on the 15th. The sun moves into Scorpio on the 15th. The new moon is also on the 15th. I'll talk about the new moon in a second, but the sun goes into your third house and will stay there for the next 30 days. So with that third house activation, you can expect transformation as it pertains to how you communicate. Scorpio season does carry this strong pivotal change with it this year, even more so because of that Jupiter-Pluto conjunction. Jupiter's moving to Capricorn, which we'll talk about in a second. But with that third house activation, you're kind of thinking on a deeper level, delving into your deep thoughts, having conversations that are very spiritual with people, maybe even having those spiritual deep conversations with like your peers. I can see this manifesting as like a podcast energy, like going on a podcast or even like starting a podcast where you guys kind of talk about spooky things, metaphysical things, occult things. So occults, metaphysical topics will be really ingrained in your everyday conversations throughout November, and really having that spiritual perspective on life, spiritual ideas, and really being focused on that theme of spirituality throughout November, and also that theme of transforming your beliefs as it pertains to spirituality, transforming how you communicate your spiritual beliefs, and really having those deep conversations with people about spirituality. And so the new moon is happening in the later degrees of Libra. So it's happening on the cusp of like Libra and Scorpio, but for you it's happening in your second house. And so this means that you're having this new cycle or this new energy, setting new intentions, manifesting as it pertains to money. There's this new financial beginning that is in store for you, setting new financial goals for yourself, and setting this kind of boundary and foundation for how you want your finances to operate, how you want to earn money, what your sources of revenue are, what your business is all about. And that brings me into Jupiter and Capricorn. So I feel like this prediction is really full circle for Virgos, because in the 2020 prediction, which I will link down below if you guys haven't seen it, I talked about how Virgos are monetizing their hobbies. And so I feel like for you, with Jupiter going into Capricorn in your fifth house, this is the point in the year where you do set more structure to whatever your passions are. Having such serious energy of like Jupiter and Saturn in your fifth house of leisure and pleasure does kind of trigger that sense of having discipline with what your passions are and taking them really seriously, and really just putting a lot of like responsibility on yourself as it pertains to how you achieve your passions, how you achieve your creative goals, etc. So in the 2020 prediction, I talked about how you guys will monetize your hobbies, but this is the point in the year where you actually like put structure to whatever your hobbies are and monetize them, of course, but also make a business plan, make a marketing plan, make a YouTube channel, make a Shopify, etc. So this is the point, I feel like, in November where you really do materialize whatever those dreams are, materialize, and even take your business to the next level, as it is based on those hobbies that you monetized probably throughout the year. I've been seeing a lot of Virgos on social media, like blow up on social media, start businesses from social media just throughout this year, throughout quarantine. Virgos have been on fire. I will say congrats to you guys. And this is the point in the year where you do kind of come down from that high and you really like put a lot more practical discipline into monetizing your hobbies in a real sense, you know, taxes, etc. So with that being said, comment down below your Halloween costume if you're dressing up this year. And also, I forgot to mention that you guys can expect, in general, publishing more media projects if you haven't been doing that throughout the year. I feel like a lot of Virgos have been doing that, but you guys will probably publish a lot more creative projects. Also, you might travel as well and profit from your creative endeavors overall. And like I said, comment down below your Halloween costume. Head to my Instagram, AstroKit, for more content, and I'll see you Virgos in my next video. Hey Capricorn, so let's get into the month of November for you and do your November prediction. So November, it brings with it these themes of power, the theme of transformation. Major life changes are taking place in November for the collective, and right now we're going to get into what part of your life is changing, what part of your life is transforming. Starting November 15th, Scorpio season does start sidereally, and those traditional themes of Scorpio, which is transformation, power, shifting, etc., is going to be really strong this year just because Jupiter is going to be conjunct Pluto as well. So we'll get into those events right now. Before that though, this is for sidereal Capricorn rising. So if you're watching this, you're probably tropical Aquarius rising, but this is more accurate for Capricorn risings, Capricorn moons in sidereal astrology. I'll leave the chart calculator down below if you're still a little bit confused, but it's more accurate for rising signs and moon signs as well. So let's just get into it. So right away in the beginning of the month, we feel this sense of relief in November just because Mercury is going direct in Libra, and then Mars is going direct in Pisces. So having those retrograde planets go direct, especially Mars, especially Mercury, it's been terrorizing us for the past couple months. It's going to feel very relieving, and we're going to feel that strong urge of like pushing forward in November. Whereas throughout this whole year, Jupiter has been retrograde, Saturn's been retrograde, but since all of the planets will be direct now, we're going to feel this direct surge of forward movement and a lot of shifting and very quick pace, in a quick pace way in November. So let's start off with the first event, which is Jupiter conjunct Pluto. So Jupiter will be conjunct Pluto directly in the same degree on November 12th. So Jupiter is the most benefic planet in astrology. Pluto is arguably the most malefic. Jupiter is about expansion, good fortune, and then Pluto is about transformation, death, regeneration, etc., rebirth. So I feel like with Jupiter conjunct Pluto this year, especially having it happen in January, and it triggered like coronavirus and stuff, and having it happen again in November, there's going to be this huge shift in power when it comes to your spiritual journey. And so the strong transformation of Jupiter and Pluto being together in one sign, in the same degree, on the same day, you're going to feel this in your 12th house because Sagittarius is your 12th house. And so this means that there's this shift in power as it pertains to your spiritual journey. And I feel like the word to describe this energy, if we can describe it at all, is empowerment, and really empowering yourself from within, empowering really your spiritual self and not just your physical self. 12th house is the house that represents everything intangible. And so I feel like with 12th house energy, it's kind of hard to almost describe a lot of the transits that happen there, a lot of the astrological events that happen there, because it's so elusive. But I feel like with Jupiter and Pluto and being those powerful planets that they are, I feel like you will feel that strong sense of inner empowerment, that kind of untouchable sort of confidence when it comes to rebirth, when it comes to transforming who you are from within and having that inner knowing, that intuition, and moving about the world with a strong sense of inner groundedness. It's really what you will feel with this Jupiter-Pluto conjunction. And it does trigger this really strong sense of spirituality for you. And you might even have some epiphanies, very strong dreams, especially around the 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, about your own spiritual journey, where you've been, where you're going. So I would say watch out for your dreams around those days because they're going to be really influential for you. And so that brings me into Scorpio season. So Scorpio season starts on November 15th this year. The sun moves into your 11th house, Capricorn. And so you're going to have Scorpio season happening in your 11th house. 11th house is about social groups, social connections, influential people, social media, etc. And Scorpio is the sign of transformation. So throughout Scorpio season, we are all, I would say, transforming in a sense, but I feel like specifically for Capricorns, you are transforming your social groups, your social connections. You are connecting with others in a very spiritual sense, having a lot of those spiritual discussions online, maybe even starting a spiritual group. or even like a spiritual cult. But I feel like there's that theme of like connecting with people, like-minded individuals with the same goals as you when it comes to spirituality. So meeting people that are also into astrology, for example, people that are into whatever you are into on a personal level in a spiritual sense. So like yoga, meditation, even just talking with people about that online, etc. There's that theme of transforming how you communicate with people in a spiritual sense, and even transforming some of your relationships, transforming your social networks, gaining new social media friends, real life friends that do connect with these spiritual beliefs that you do have. And then on that same day, the new moon is happening. The new moon is happening in Libra, which is kind of a rare occurrence, but it's happening on the cusp of like Libra and Scorpio. So like the last degrees of Libra, first degrees of Scorpio, in the nakshatra of Vishaka, which I will talk about later on my channel. But this new moon does trigger a new career direction for you. The new moon's happening in your 10th house of Libra. And I feel like this does trigger a new work project, for example, a new job, even if you're kind of in that space. But if you're already in a job, settled in whatever job you're in, you might even launch a new project, launch your own business, launch a new line within your business, etc. I feel like there's that new energy as it pertains to career for you. And then last but not least, I will talk about Jupiter going into Capricorn. So Jupiter has been in Sagittarius. It's in Sagittarius as we speak right now. I did a video about Jupiter being in Sagittarius a couple weeks ago. And so Jupiter moves into your first house. So this is a really important transit for you, if not the most important, because Saturn just went into your first house as well on September 29th, I believe. And so Saturn is your chart ruler, aka one of the most important planets in your personal chart, and Jupiter going into your first house as well. So you're really going to feel that Jupiter and Saturn energy really magnify your presence, your aesthetics, your physical appearance, also your attitude towards life. I feel like your attitude towards life is really going to change in November, where you do have a new optimistic perspective, where you're more focused on building your life, being disciplined, and really taking that empowerment you experience from the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction and manifesting into your life, your physical constitution, how you operate, and feeling really empowered from within and empowered to really change your life. So your life changes are really going to happen throughout November, but I feel like you're really going to feel it even more personally since you're having it really strongly connected to your first house of identity, self, attitude, etc. So with that being said, expect a lot of spiritual empowerment. And then comment down below your Halloween costume if you're dressing up this year. And then head to my Instagram at AstroKid for more content. And I'll see you Capricorns in my next video. Hey Gemini, so let's get into your monthly prediction and talk about what the month of November has in store for you. So in the first timestamp of this video, I talked about the events of November. And we're going to get into how those collective events really influence you on a personal level. And if I could chalk it up into a few words, I would say that November was really about power, shifting of power, as well as major change and transformation. So this is using sidereal astrology, and starting on November 15th, Scorpio season starts, so sidereal Scorpio season starts. And so those very Scorpio themes of transformation, of power, of shifting is really relevant in November, especially this time around because Jupiter is going to be conjunct Pluto, and I'll get into that in a second, what it means for you. But let's get into this energy of change and shifting and see how your life is going to change, transform, and shift with this Scorpio energy, Pluto energy really strong in November. So with that being said, this is for sidereal astrology, sidereal dates, sidereal Gemini rising. That means that you are probably a Cancer in tropical astrology or tropical Cancer rising. You can watch this for your moon sign or your rising sign, but rising sign is the most accurate, most relevant. And I'll leave the calculator down below if you guys still don't know your rising sign or feel unsure about what timestamp you should watch this for. So let's get into it, Gemini risings. Okay, so right away, right off the bat in November, Mercury and Mars go direct. So Mars has been direct, is retrograde right now, and then Mercury is retrograde right now as well, and those two planets have been causing a lot of chaos because they're retrograde, but they go direct finally Mercury goes direct on November 3rd. Mars goes direct November 13th. So we have that relief of energy, and I feel like all of the planets in November will be direct. So usually planets are retrograde throughout the year, but November is unique because we have that huge jolt of energy moving forward into the latter half of 2020. So let's get into the first event, which is Jupiter conjunct Pluto. So Jupiter conjunct Pluto is probably the biggest event of the month. It's a really powerful energy because two of the most powerful planets in astrology are going to be in the same degree on November 12th. So what does this mean? Well, Jupiter is about expansion. It's about luck, abundance, good fortune. Jupiter expands things, and Pluto is about amplification of things. So having those two almost similar energies but kind of different come together really represent this huge shift, this almost like groundbreaking sort of change that's going to happen in our lives. So for you, Gemini, this is happening in your 7th house. So Gemini has, I think you have North Node in the 8th house right now. But when it comes to this huge shift, when it comes to Jupiter and Pluto, you're going to feel this huge amplification or huge shift of power when it comes to partnerships with relationships. And since this is Scorpio season, I will say extremes are relevant as well, because Scorpio represents extremes, Pluto represents extremes. So you might have a situation where you get into a partnership that's really extremely beneficial for you or extremely fulfilling for you or satisfying, or you might experience the other extreme of breaking up with someone in a very toxic, extreme, or public way. So that theme can go differently in different Gemini's lives, but there's definitely some sort of amplified gain or amplified breakup when it comes to partnerships for you, specifically because you're having that Jupiter-Pluto conjunction in the 7th house. So expect major change when it comes to partnerships, who you're with. The person you're with right now might not be that same person after November. But let's get into Scorpio season. So Scorpio season this year starts on the 15th, and that means the sun moves into Scorpio sidereally and then stays there until December 15th. And so the sun's going into your 6th house, and Scorpio is about transformation, right? So I feel like with Scorpio season this year, I feel like you're really transforming your habits, your routines, and how productive you are. 6th house does deal with discipline. It deals with logical activities we do, health, how we maintain our health, how we maintain a routine. So I feel like that's transforming for you in November, and you're really experiencing kind of extreme change when it comes to how healthy you are, how productive you are you productive at all, are you healthy at all, and really like putting a lot of energy to manifest the change within that area of your life and also in your work life too, because 6th house is work. And then the new moon is also on November 15th, and the new moon is unique this month just because it's in the sign of Libra. Technically it's in the like last degrees of Libra and like kind of cusping that beginning energy of Scorpio, whereas usually the new moon is like in the new season, so like Scorpio season, Scorpio new moon, but it's in the later degrees of Libra this time around. But what this means is that it's in your 5th house. So again, you're having this romance energy activated for you. You're having partnerships really triggered in your life, and you might even start a new romance in November. I feel like that's a key prediction I have for some sidereal Geminis, is getting in a new partnership, maybe breaking off an old partnership to get into a new one. Again, there's that theme of like extremes there when it comes to partnerships, so like extremely sudden new partnership or extremely sudden breakup of with someone else. But 5th house is more about superficial romance, superficial dating, so you might gain more like a optimistic or superficial perspective on dating in November, especially with the new moon on the 15th. So mid-month, you're kind of in that more like flirty energy with people. You also might launch a new creative project or a new hobby or something you've been really thinking about. There might be a new hobby that you pick up around that time as well. 5th house does rule hobbies and kind of things we do in a pleasurable sense, in a leisure sort of sense. So that's your energy mid-month. And then towards the end of the month, we make our way into the last event, or one of the last events, which is Jupiter moving to Capricorn. So Saturn moved into Capricorn just a few weeks ago, and then Jupiter joins Saturn in just a couple weeks. And so Jupiter is going into your 8th house. And so with that 8th house activation for you, the next, I think I said earlier that the North Node's in your 8th house. I actually think it's in your 12th house. But that means your 12th house and 8th house are both activated. So the water houses, the Dasthana houses, are activated, which means you're probably dealing with like a lot of karma towards the end of the year, or dealing with a lot of, I would say, karmic baggage that you maybe haven't dealt with in a few years or throughout the year, and really having that come to your forefront in November especially. But with Jupiter going into your 8th house on the 20th, you're putting more structure into how you value others. You might enter a cycle where you gain more from others, or you work on how you gain from others. 8th house does rule other people's money. So with Jupiter, that benefic planet going into the 8th house, you might experience gaining, I would say, money from other people through insurance, something like that. But with that transit of Jupiter there, I think it does stand for just the sense of values, how you value yourself, how you set boundaries with people, and what kind of people you value in your life. I feel like November is really about relationships for you, but not like in a superficial sense or like just like a talking stage sense, but really like transforming what your relationships are even built on. What are the pillars of your relationships? What is the foundation? That foundation is really being shaken up with Jupiter conjunct Pluto, and then Jupiter's going to your 8th house. That 8th house Pluto energy is so powerful because it shifts the foundations of things. It doesn't just shift the building, it shifts like the entire foundation the building stands on. So that's kind of happening in your love life and romantic life in November. So you can expect a new relationship or breaking up with someone. I definitely feel like one of those two extremes is happening for sidereal Geminis. So with that being said, comment down below your Halloween costume this year if you're dressing up, and also head to Instagram at AstroKit for more astrology content, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Hey Libra, so let's get into the month of November for you and talk about what November has in store for you. So in the first timestamp of this video, I talked about the list of events that are occurring in November astrologically and how it's really influencing the collective at large, and right now we're going to get into how that really influences you on a personal level. So this is for Libra risings, Libra rising in sidereal astrology, so you might be a Scorpio rising in tropical. So you can watch it for moon sign or rising sign as well, but I would say rising is more relevant and more accurate. And if you're still unsure about your rising sign, I'll link it down below, the calculator for that. So anyway, November, what it has in store for us is this theme of transformation. In true Scorpio fashion, it is Scorpio season in November. The traditional themes of Scorpio are very relevant this year in astrology, especially because Jupiter is going to be conjunct Pluto, which is also another symbol of Scorpio. A symbol of 8th house Scorpio energy is Pluto. And so themes of transformation, major shifts, power shifts, spirituality, also just this major theme of change is so relevant for the collective. And we're going to see how that's really impacting your chart as a Libra rising. So right out of the gate, when it comes to November, we start off the month with Mercury going direct. So that's a really relieving energy where Mercury has been retrograde the past couple weeks, causing havoc. And then Mars is going direct as well on November 13th. So we're going to feel that energy of all the planets being direct in November, which is truly powerful because they've been retrograde throughout the year, which can be very sluggish energy, energy that is confusing and makes us backtrack and feel confused. But when the planets, all of the planets at once go direct, we're going to feel that huge push forward where we actually feel like we can change things and it actually manifests the way we want it to. So I feel like November does bring us to that theme of manifestation and bringing our manifestations into physical reality. And so the first event I will touch on is Jupiter conjunct Pluto. So this is a really important event in astrology in general. It rarely happens, but when it does, major events take place under the energy of Jupiter conjunct Pluto, which means that Jupiter-Pluto is going to be in the same sign at the same degree, Sagittarius. And so with Jupiter conjunct Pluto, It happened earlier this year in January, and that's when coronavirus started. And so when Jupiter conjuncts Pluto again on November 12th, it's going to be happening in your third house. And so Jupiter is the most benefic planet in astrology. Pluto is probably the most malefic. Pluto is about amplification. It's about transformation. Jupiter is about expansion. So we're going to see huge power shift and amplification of energy when it comes to Jupiter-Pluto conjunct. And having that in your third house of communication, this means that you're going to have a shift of power and amplification of how you communicate with people. So this probably will take on a very spiritual theme for you as well, Libra, just because Pluto does represent spirituality and so does Jupiter. So you might have an epiphany that's like a spiritual epiphany where you want to communicate your spiritual ideas, you want to post like very spiritual content or get some sort of really important intuitive message you have out. Since you do have Scorpio in your second house, and Scorpio does represent that theme of like psychic awareness, you might have like some sort of psychic revelation where it's like, I feel like I have to publish this, I feel like I have to write something about this, a blog post, a book. And so for you, you might have this really strong urge to communicate some sort of powerful message that is basically like an intuitive download, or you can't even receive a message through a dream, through another person, but either way, strong spiritual messages will be kind of like channeled through you, and you feel the urge to publish it on social media, publish it online. Third house does deal with media, publishing. It indirectly deals with social media because it aspects the 11th house of social media. So yeah, definitely like some sort of intuitive epiphany going on there with Jupiter conjunct Pluto in your third house. And you might also have some sort of amplified gain through a sibling. So I would say some messages might come to you through a sibling, or you feel the urge to tell a sibling, or this whole kind of dynamic I'm talking about can involve your sibling somehow. But either way, that third house energy, Jupiter-Pluto energy, does magnify communication and intuitive downloads. So the next event is Scorpio season. So Scorpio season starts on November 15th this year. The sun moves into Scorpio sidereally on November 15th, and the new moon's also on that day. But when it comes to Scorpio season, it's really about transformation and really changing your life, having your life even just change around you without you really having to do anything too willful. But this is going to be in your second house. So you have Scorpio in your second house. So this means your awareness for the month is really about money. It's about finances, how you manage your money. It's also about your values as well. So I sense with this like Jupiter-Pluto conjunction and also like this second house energy that your values are really going to change by the end of the month. What you believe about yourself, what your affirmations are, what your spiritual beliefs are really going to be transformed throughout this month, and especially with Scorpio season towards the latter half of the month. So you can expect kind of like extreme loss or extreme gain when it comes to finances in November. I feel like with Scorpio, the archetype of Scorpio represents extremes. And so you might extremely have some sort of extreme gain when it comes to money, second house, or extreme loss when it comes to money. So you can kind of think about that and how that fits into your life and like your financial situation. But extremes are very relevant when it comes to your second house in November. And then the new moon's also on that same day. And the new moon is actually, uniquely enough, in the last degrees of Libra. Usually a new moon is like in the sign of the season it is, so it usually would be like a Scorpio new moon. But the new moon's actually kind of like on the cusp of Libra and Scorpio. But what this means is that it's going to be in your first house, kind of like on the cusp of your first and second house. So you're kind of beginning this new energy as it pertains to how you approach life, what your identity is, what your physical appearance is. On Instagram, I talked about how a lot of Libras were like shaving their heads or like changing their hair. So you're still continuing that kind of like physical transformation journey in November, having sort of like a glow up, so to speak. And you're also glowing up your finances as well. So I feel like for a lot of Libras, you will be kind of transforming your financial destiny, the foundation of your finances, business plan, etc. And so the other and final event I want to talk about is Jupiter going to Capricorn. So Saturn went into Capricorn a couple weeks ago. And then Jupiter joins Saturn also in Capricorn in just a few weeks in November. And what this means is that having those two outer planets of Jupiter and Saturn in the sign of Capricorn sidereally, it's going to be in your 4th house. So this means you're putting more structure and effort into your home life, into your security. Really procuring security for yourself. 4th house does deal everything with security, and then Saturn is about effort, Jupiter is about expansion. So Jupiter is going to be debilitated in Saturn, so we're going to see more like focus and emphasized effort on wherever that is happening in our chart. So for you, it's happening in the 4th house, so you're going to have a lot of expansion in your home life, but also restriction and also a lot of discipline and effort being put forth into how you handle your home situations, home dynamics, what your security methods are, maybe like in a literal sense, but also like metaphorically, how secure do you feel financially? How secure do you feel when it comes to your assets and where you live in general? And also you might even find yourself getting into real estate, into interior renovations, might even get into anything having to do with property and vehicles. So some of you guys might be getting into that in like a professional sense, like business wise, or just really investing in those things and putting effort into those things and really laying down a proper foundation for your home life is going to be your focus, especially starting the end of November. And Jupiter and Saturn both stay in Capricorn for the next couple years. So it's a pretty relevant transit. I'll probably touch on it like later in the year and like 2021, but for now it's starting off in November. So with that being said, expect more business opportunities to pop up for you throughout November, especially with your 10th house being activated indirectly. Your 2nd house is activated, it rules money. So business opportunities to make money are definitely relevant for you, Libra. So with that being said, tell me down below what your Halloween costume is if you're dressing up this year. And my Instagram is @AstroKit for more astrology content, and I'll see you Libras in my next video. Hey Aquarius, so let's get into the month of November and talk about what November has in store for you. In the first timestamp of this video, I talked about the events in November, what's going on in the collective, what to look out for and put on your calendar for the month. And right now we're going to get into how that manifests in your personal life and take a look at your birth chart, see what that is doing to get a good idea of what to expect for you in November. So with that being said, this is for Aquarius rising, Aquarius moon, and sidereal Aquarius rising, sidereal Aquarius moon. It's most accurate for sidereal Aquarius rising. So if you don't know your rising sign yet or you feel confused about it, click the link down below. I'll have the calculator in the description box. But usually if you're a tropical Pisces rising, you might be Aquarius rising in sidereal astrology. So with that being said, we're going to get into this month. And so this month is really about transformation. If we can chalk it up into a few words, it's about transformation, change, shifts of power, and power in general. There's this kind of rebirth energy really on the horizon for the collective and pretty much for everyone at large. So sidereal Scorpio season starts on November 15th, and so all of those traditional Scorpio themes of transformation, change, power shifts, power in general are really relevant this year in November, and also that theme of rebirth. So let's get into these events and talk about how this is relevant for you, Aquarius. So the first thing is right out of the gate on November 3rd, Mercury goes direct, so thank God. Mercury goes direct. It's been retrograde, causing havoc, and Mars goes direct as well on November 13th. So all of those retrograde planets are officially going direct. It does bring that relieving sort of energy, that breath of fresh air where things are moving forward in a uniform fashion again. And I think all of the planets will be direct in November, starting November, before other planets start to go retrograde. So having all of those planets direct, it does bring with it that really strong energy of forward movement for us and letting go of that sense of stagnation that has been lagging throughout 2020. So the first event I will touch on is Jupiter conjunct Pluto. So Jupiter conjunct Pluto is probably one of the most relevant and important events in astrology in general, just because it happens like every hundreds or decades of years. It happened earlier this year in January when the planets went retrograde, and that's when sort of like coronavirus started. But since it's happening on November 12th, it's happening in the sign of Sagittarius. Jupiter is the planet of expansion, abundance, and good fortune. Pluto is the planet of amplification. It rules transformation, influence, power, etc. So having two of the most powerful planets in astrology conjunct in the same degree on the same day represents a huge, almost burst or boom or explosion of energy. And so you're feeling this energy in your 11th house, which is actually quite positive, just because 11th house does have a positive connotation to it. And Jupiter, even though it's conjunct Pluto, which is a malefic energy, does bring kind of like a more positive spin to this change that is occurring. So the specific change that is occurring is that you're going to have a shift in power when it comes to your social circles. So the way this might manifest for you, Aquarius, is that you might have a shift in how you're viewed status-wise. Like you might have a boost in status, especially on the internet. 11th house rules social media. And I feel like the unique thing about the 11th house is that it does rule fame in a sense. Traditionally, the 10th house rules fame, but I feel like in today's modern society, 11th house rules like social media fame. And so for you, that means you might have amplified gain when it comes to an online business, social media projects. If you're someone who recently started like a YouTube channel or a blog, this could be a period of time in November between like 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, where you do experience a huge boost, a huge amplification of followers or customers to your business or engagement, kind of beneficial things as it does pertain to 11th house topics, and specifically like the internet and online endeavors. So you can expect like that Jupiter-Pluto magnified energy to really push you forward status-wise, social status-wise. You might meet someone who is very important. 11th house does rule influential people. So you might get a boost or help from an investor, from someone who is influential, maybe like an elder sibling, someone who is just like in a elevated position from you, but helps you elevate as well. It's kind of like the formula here with this Jupiter-Pluto-Saturn. Jupiter-Pluto conjunction in your 11th house. So you can kind of expect those things to go your way in that period of time during November. So the next thing I will talk about is Scorpio season. So sidereal Scorpio season does start on November 15th this year. So that means the sun is moving to Scorpio. That means the sun is going into your 10th house. So there's definitely a status transformation that's kind of like scheduled for you. With Scorpio season, Scorpio energy, we know it's about transformation, and having Scorpio in your 10th house does trigger that sense of transformation of your career. So you're experiencing a lot of career change now. I feel like as I've read the comments throughout my other predictions videos, especially the nodal shift video of the South Node going to Scorpio, you guys have been saying that you've been changing jobs and stuff, but that change and transformation is going to continue throughout November. Change of location, change of jobs. I feel like it's more of a positive shift. I feel like the feedback has been more positive, but for some, it can be kind of negative too, because Scorpio is quite malefic energy. But with the sun there for the 10th house, for the sun being in your 10th house for November, you will have more of an awareness about your reputation, how you're perceived, what your social connections are, and really transforming whatever your career is overall, changing it completely. Scorpio does rule extreme, so you can have extreme change of career, like jumping from one brand of career to another, changing from one industry to another, etc. And also I would say it's like transformation of status as well. And I feel like that transformation of status is relevant with the 11th house. So again, 10th house rules fame, status traditionally. So going from one level of life, like being a worker or employee, to being a boss, to being a business owner. So you're really seeing that huge shift, that huge extreme jump from wherever you are at right now to another elevated position. 10th house does rule elevation and going forward in life. So you are experiencing that huge transformation of moving forward in life in November, and it's a really great time to publish any public, I would say, career projects in November for you, because you have that positive energy working in your 10th house. And then also on the same day of November 15th, there's the new moon in Libra. So uniquely enough, the new moon is in the last degrees of Libra in November. Usually the new moon coincides with the zodiac season it is, so it usually would be like a Scorpio new moon, but it's kind of like on that cusp of like Scorpio and Libra, like the last degrees of Libra, beginning degrees of Scorpio in the nakshatra of Vishaka. But I would say with this new moon, it's happening in your 9th house, like 9th house, 10th house cusp. So there's that sense of new beginnings for you as it pertains to opportunities, as it pertains to your purpose, travel, a sense of optimism. You're going to be really feeling very optimistic in November, which is kind of ironic because Scorpio is sort of like a pessimistic energy, but you're more so optimistic houses, 9, 10, and 11, are more like activated in November. So you're going to feel that kind of energy of like you feel like you can do anything. There's no limits, expansion, moving forward. You're going to feel very optimistic. And again, there's a really strong theme of status shifting, especially too with the 9th house. I feel like all of those houses deal with status in a certain way. So whatever your status is right now, it's going to change by the end of November, depending on where you want to be in life. And I see more of like a status elevation for a lot of Aquarius. So that brings me into the Jupiter in Capricorn. So this is really powerful for you because Jupiter rules your 11th house, and then also Saturn rules your 1st house, and Saturn just went into Capricorn. So Jupiter is joining Saturn in your 12th house by November 20th. So what this means with Jupiter going into Capricorn, you're going to have this shift of Jupiter being in your 11th house for the past, I would say, year or so, and it's going to go into your 12th house for the next year or so. So with Jupiter going into your 12th house, joining Saturn, it really represents this finally moment for you, Aquarius. With the 12th house, it rules endings. It rules closing things out. So having your 1st house ruler, pretty much the most important planet in your chart, Saturn go into your 12th house for the next 2 years, and then Jupiter joining that planet, I feel like you're in this space right now where you are ending things out, you're closing things out karmically, you're coming to an end, or a lot of things in your life are coming to an end. But I would say it's not like a super like negative thing. I feel like endings are kind of perceived as negative, but they're not too negative. So like ending careers, ending certain jobs, moving homes. I know a lot of you guys are moving homes. You've been telling me in the comments. And just like overcoming obstacles. And so Jupiter being such a benefic energy going into your 12th house represents some sort of finally moment when it comes to something you've been wanting to achieve for so long, finally happening. So for a lot of you guys, this could be social status like we talked about. It could be career achievement. It can also be marriage. It can be moving as well. And I think we talked about it in the 2020 prediction video. If you guys have missed that, I'll post it down below so you guys can see if any of the predictions came true. And in that prediction, we talked about how this year for you might have been a little bit more isolated. Maybe it was a bit more introspective even. And there might have been a lot of delays when it came to like your goals, what you wanted to achieve. But right now, when it comes to Jupiter going into your 12th house, it represents finally getting that promotion, finally getting that engagement, marriage that maybe you've been wanting, getting that job, moving into that dream apartment. So expect a lot of, I would say, good fortune for Aquarius in the next 2 months of 2020, especially if you've been feeling like this year has just been not your year, or feeling like it's a bit stagnant, or it's just not working out the way you envisioned it. With Jupiter, it does bring blessings. Going into your 12th house, it's endings. It does represent overcoming obstacles and finally reaching that victory that you've been having your eye on, and finally achieving it, whatever it is. And so I would say too, with Saturn being in your 12th, the downside to all of this is more expenditures. So you might have your second house ruler is Pisces. So Jupiter rules Pisces, and then Jupiter's going in the 12th house of loss. So when it comes to your money, you might have more expenditures on things that you didn't expect. So that's something to watch out for, spending more money than usual, having the need to spend more money. So saving money is definitely another thing that you do have to be mindful of for this latter half of 2020 with your second house ruler in the 12th house. So that being said, expect a change of fate, a change of destiny, and a lot of expansion and elevation for you Aquarius risings. So that being said, comment down below and tell me your Halloween costume this year if you're dressing up. And my Instagram is at AstroKit for more astrology content, and I'll see you Aquarius in my next video. Hey Cancer, so let's get into the month of November and talk about what November has in store for you. So in the first time stamp of this video, I talked about the key events in November, what's happening astrologically, and the energy overall for November for the collective. But right now we're going to get into what that means for your personal sign and get into your chart, see what it's looking like, to see what events you can expect to manifest in your life during the month of November. And so when it comes to November, the key words I would say that are really relevant are transformation, shift, shifting of power specifically. Power in general is really magnified, rebirth, and that theme of change is really strong in November because it is Scorpio season. So Scorpio season traditionally rules all of those things, but I would say it's even more magnified because Pluto is going to be conjunct Jupiter also during the month, which I'll get into in a second. But Pluto is active, Scorpio is active, which are both, I would say, really relevant to each other. And so we're really going to see that theme of change and rebirth take place. And so let's get into what that means in your specific chart. So when it comes to the month of November, right away on November 3rd, Mercury does go direct. So that's a really relieving energy. It's been retrograde. It's retrograde as we speak right now. And having it retrograde has been kind of like a little bit of a downer because it does trigger that sense of confusion, but it's going direct at the beginning of the month, November 3rd, and then Mars also goes direct finally on November 13th. So Mars has been retrograde even longer than Mercury, and Mars is going direct in the sign of Pisces. So having those planets direct does bring that relief, that sigh of relief. And I believe all of the planets are going to be direct in November, which is also really great because they've all been retrograde throughout the year, and stagnation, confusion has been really relevant. But with it going direct, we're going to feel that strong energy of moving forward, the willpower and the excitement of moving into a new reality after we've been dealing with a bunch of karmic baggage throughout the year with all of these retrogrades. So with that being said, I think I forgot to mention this is for sidereal Cancer rising or Cancer moon. So you're probably a Leo rising watching this, or tropical Leo rising, tropical Leo moon. Usually in sidereal astrology, your sign gets pushed back one sign. So I'll leave the calculator down below if you still feel a little bit confused about that. But this is for sidereal Cancer rising. It'll be most relevant for rising sign, even moon sign too, if you want to watch it for that too. But anyway, these are the sidereal dates. I think I forgot to mention. But anyway, let's get into it. The first event, which is Jupiter conjunct Pluto. So Jupiter conjunct Pluto is a really huge event in astrology overall. It only happens every several decades, and it happened on January of this year. So when the planets went retrograde, they were conjunct. And that's kind of like when the epidemic or pandemic started. And then so they're going to be conjunct again, but this time they are direct in the sign of Sagittarius. And Jupiter represents expansion, abundance, good fortune. Pluto is about amplification, transformation, rebirth. Jupiter is a very benefic energy. Pluto is a malefic energy. So having these two powerful planets conjunct in the same degree, November 12th, does trigger a sense of amplification of power, shift, and change, and expansion. So you're going to feel this specifically for you, Leo, in your 6th house of Sagittarius. And so this means that there's a shift in power as it pertains to your work life, as it pertains to your job. In the nodal shift video, we talked about how Rahu, aka the North Node, is in your 10th house right now. So you're probably kind of maybe starting to reap the benefits of career success, recognition, etc. But you're going to feel that even more amplified in November. So expect a lot of career recognition, success with this Jupiter-Pluto conjunction. And it's really good to kind of plan your career projects around that. So if any of you guys have like career projects, like a business you want to launch, a line you want to launch or something like that, it's good to like launch it around probably Jupiter-Pluto conjunction, because you probably have a lot more amplified energy when it comes to success with that project, which is really great. The great thing about astrology, because you get to like plan your success around the planets, because you already know about the transits beforehand. But anyway, 6th house also represents diet, health, and our routine. So you might also have some sort of amplified change as it pertains to your diet, your routine, cutting out certain foods. You might even have this really like strong work ethic. 6th house is really about work ethic, and 10th house is really activated with Rahu right now. So you have this almost like laser vision of like, okay, this is the career I have. This is what I want to manifest. You're so focused on your career goals, and they're really going to manifest for you in a major way in these last 2 months of 2020 if you put in that focus. And Scorpio season does give you that laser fixation sort of energy, obsession energy when it comes to career for you, and focusing on what you want to manifest. And so that brings me into Scorpio season. So Scorpio season does start on the 15th this year. It starts on November 15th sidereally. And so the sun is going to be in your 5th house during Scorpio season. And so what this means is that transformation is really relevant with the Scorpio archetype, and it's going to activate your 5th house. And so what this means is that you might have a lot of transformation when it comes to your desires, your passions. You might shift from one set of hobbies, like, okay, I love this thing, I'm passionate about this thing, these are my hobbies based on this passion, but then Scorpio brings this sort of like 180 energy of like, okay, I'm no longer passionate about that, let's move on to this thing. So you might be even shifting careers, or kind of like shifting focus in your career, or shifting focus and whatever your pleasures are, whatever your hobbies are. If some of you guys have a career that are based on your hobbies, then that is shifting in November. Some of you guys might even get pregnant. I feel like pregnancy is definitely kind of like in the cards for some. Have I been saying Leos? This is sidereal Cancers. So for some sidereal Cancers, there is kind of like pregnancy in the air for you, or like in your astrology. So like this is kind of like accidental pregnancy. I just felt the need to kind of like point that out for some people, but 5th house does rule pregnancy. So some of you guys might be conceiving in November, or even maybe accidentally doing so. Either way, pregnancy is also relevant with this 5th house energy activated. So then the new moon is also on the same day, so November 15th, except the new moon is in the last degrees of Libra, and the first degrees of Scorpio. So the new moon, uniquely enough, this year is in between. It's like in the last degrees of Libra, but usually it would just be in Scorpio because it's Scorpio season. But it's happening in your 4th house. So with this new moon in your 4th house, there's a newfound focus on home. So again, the overall umbrella energy is transformation. So some of you guys might be moving homes, transforming your home somehow, manifesting a new home, manifesting a new apartment, a new living situation, new roommates, new something as it pertains to home. If you guys have been, had your eyes on moving for a little bit, you might move homes or have that beneficial energy when it comes to setting intention for that, and just focusing on really cultivating your home life as well. And then the last event I will talk about is Jupiter going to Capricorn. So Jupiter has been in Sagittarius for the past couple months. It's been retrograde. It's been dancing between Saturn. It's been dancing between Capricorn and Sagittarius, but it officially stations in Capricorn on the 20th, and it stays there for the next year until 2021, about this time next year. And so with Jupiter going into Capricorn, it's going into your 7th house. Saturn just went into your 7th house. And so with Jupiter joining Saturn in your 7th house, this means there's new responsibilities and new energy as it pertains to partnerships for you. You might be putting a lot of effort into your partnerships, putting a lot of effort into your relationship with the public, like PR work, or how you're perceived in the world. 4th house does represent everything relating to like public relations as well, even though I feel like we think it's just partnership. It is mostly partnership, but it's also public relations too. So you might be really focused on your relationship with the public, especially if you're in a public relation sort of career. Your 11th house is activated with Rahu right now, so you've probably been really active on social media lately, gaining followers, gaining status on social media, so you're still continuing that same social elevation journey with Jupiter going into your 7th in Capricorn. You might even get into a serious engagement, a serious marriage by the end of the year. Usually with Jupiter being with Saturn in the same house, it does create beneficial, stable energy for marriage and commitment. So if that's something you want, something you've been manifesting, it will happen with this transit of Jupiter being in your 7th house. And your relationships will be strengthened with Jupiter being in your 7th house. Not just because it's by itself, but because it's with Saturn. Saturn is that stable energy. Saturn is your 7th house ruler. So there is beneficial, stable longevity when it comes to relationships for you for November, and I would say December too, because Jupiter, Saturn are going to stay there for the next couple years. So with that being said, expect strengthening of your home life and your relationship life. And for some people, conceiving is likely. If you want that, then it's probably a good time to do that. If you don't want that, then just be careful that your 5th house is really activated, so conception is more likely. With that being said, comment down below your Halloween costume if you're dressing up this year, and head to my Instagram at AstroKid for more astrology content, and I'll see you Cancers in my next video. Hey Scorpio, so let's get into the month of November and talk about what November has in store for you and what you can expect to happen in your life throughout the month next month. So November is this month where it's really about transformation. It's about change. Power shifting is huge in November because it is your season. Scorpio season starts on the 15th this year, which we'll talk about in a second. But this traditional Scorpio energy, which you're probably really familiar with, is really relevant for the collective at large, and it really is your time to shine, with Scorpio being the spotlight energy in November. And in the first timestamp of this video, I went through the major events of the month and how they influence the collective, and right now we're going to get into how they really manifest on a personal level. We're going to take a look at your birth chart, see what that's doing, and get a good idea of what your life is looking like in November. So with that being said, this is for Scorpio rising, sidereal Scorpio rising, sidereal Scorpio moon. Usually people who are sidereal Scorpio risings are tropical Sagittarius. So if you're still confused about your sidereal rising sign, I'll leave the calculator down below so you guys can check it out just to make sure. But yeah, this is more relevant and accurate, most accurate for rising signs. You can watch it for moon sign as well if you feel compelled to do that as well. And so all the dates I mentioned and stuff are on the sidereal system calendar, not the tropical one. So let's get into it. So right away, November 3rd, Mercury goes direct. It goes direct in Libra. So thank God Mercury has been retrograde the past couple weeks, and as we're talking right now, it's still retrograde, but it officially goes direct on the 3rd. And so what that means is that it's like that relieving energy of communication working again. Communication is more fluid and direct and less confusing. And then also Mercury, Mars goes direct on November 13th. So both Mercury and Mars have been retrograde the past couple weeks, and Mars has been retrograde for like a full month, so we feel that relieving energy starting to manifest of planets being direct, and I think all of the planets will be direct in November, so we're going to feel that strong urge and push forward, and less confusing energy, less stagnant energy, but really that powerful push forward is what we need right now. So let's talk about what that means for you in your personal life. So the first event I will talk about is Jupiter conjunct Pluto. So Jupiter and Pluto being conjunct in the same degree, in the same sign, happens on exactly November 12th. We'll feel that kind of conjunction energy, I would say like the 11th, 12th, 13th, that area. But with this, it's a major event in astrology, something that doesn't happen too often, only every few decades, I think. But it happened earlier this year when the planets went retrograde. It happened in January, and that's when the pandemic really started. So when these two planets of Jupiter representing expansion and fortune and beliefs, and also Pluto representing amplification, power, influence, transformation, rebirth, come together, represents this huge explosive sort of energy that does trigger a lot of expansion, a lot of transformation, like sort of like that feeling of like an earthquake, or that feeling of like the rug being pulled up from under us, but it takes on more of like a positive spin since it's in the sign of Sagittarius and it's Jupiter is involved. So with this conjunction, it is happening in your second house. So this conjunction, this transit is all about amplification. It's about expansion and power shifting. And so what this means for you, Scorpio rising, is that you're going to have a huge shift in power as it pertains to your finances. An amplified gain of finances as well. I would say finances are really amplified for you in general in November, and specifically what the direction of your finances are. How do you earn money? Adding new revenue streams. You might gain some sort of I see this manifesting for actually a lot of you guys. I feel this kind of urge to tell you that if you have like a business or something around that date, your business might just take off, which is really exciting for some people, especially if you just started a business and you haven't seen sales yet. But if you kind of maybe even plan something or launch something on that day, or just kind of like check the analytics and engagement with your business, when it comes to Jupiter, Pluto conjunct in your second house, you might just gain a lot when it comes to that conjunction and have a surprise amplified gain of money when it comes to your business. But for others, that can just be gain in, the job that you're in, maybe a promotion, surprise gain in money, a check from someone else, something like that. And then also it might be manifesting, or it might manifest as a shift in power as it pertains to your values, to what you believe about yourself. Your self-worth might just gain a boost with this conjunction, and when your self-worth is high, you gain a lot of money. So there's that huge theme for you of like gaining confidence and gaining money as well with this conjunction in your second house. So that brings me to Scorpio season. So Scorpio season this year sidereally starts on the 15th. So November 15th, the sun goes into your first house. So that's a nice transit where the sun is in your first house. So you're really focused on yourself. The shine is on you. You're really recognized. People are admiring you. But what's really unique is that, of course, the archetype of Scorpio, as you know very well, is about transformation and extremes. And you might be transforming yourself during this time, transforming your looks, your appearance, just your perspective on the world, your attitude. And this theme of empowerment is really strong in Scorpio season this year. And I feel like you're going to be really feeling the strong essence of empowering yourself, empowering your beliefs about yourself, your self-dialogue, etc. Just really empowering yourself overall and transforming yourself and your attitude in general. And so the other event happening that same day is the new moon in Libra. So this new moon is unique just because it's in the very last degrees of Libra, whereas a new moon is usually coinciding with the sun moving into a new sign. So it would be like a Scorpio new moon usually, but it's kind of like cusping Libra, the end degrees of Libra, beginning days of Scorpio. So this means this new moon is happening right at the end of your 12th house, Scorpio rising. And so this new moon on November 15th does represent this new sense of inner psychological empowerment. 12th house deals with everything intangible. It deals with our subconscious mind, all of our karmic baggage. Everything we can't see is represented by the 12th house. I really think of it as like your inner self. And so I feel like this new moon does trigger a sense of inner empowerment. Your first house is really activated, so you're feeling really confident, bold. You're really stepping into your power, your element. Scorpio season is your element, and the sense of power is really relevant. So you can expect that outer power, physical power, in the way you look and behave, but also on your inner self too. So empowerment is a huge theme here with this new moon on that day, mid-month on November 15th. And then the last thing I will talk about is Jupiter going to Capricorn. So Jupiter goes into Capricorn officially November 20th. Jupiter has kind of been dancing around between Sagittarius, Capricorn, and sidereal astrology. And so it's finally going into another sign, and it will stay there for a full year. So this is going into your third house, and Saturn already went direct into Capricorn already. So Saturn's in your third house right now, and Jupiter's going to join Saturn. So what this means is that you're starting a new cycle as it pertains to communication, how you communicate, And I will say this might manifest as really having a strong emphasis on the effort you put into how you word things, how you write things. You might really get into writing, especially in November, but this transit of Jupiter and Saturn lasts for the next year or so. Saturn stays for the next couple years, then Jupiter stays for the next year. So you can expect to maybe be more focused on how you write. You might publish things, publish a book, for example. You guys do have Sagittarius as your second house, if I'm not mistaken. So that means that I'm trying to think, Scorpio, Sag. Yeah, I think Sagittarius is your second house. So you're somebody who can make a lot of money off of what you write, off of your knowledge, off of your wisdom. So this can be a good transit for you, where you do write a book, write a blog, maybe you get more interested in media, start a new language. Third house does rule learning as well. So having this Saturn, Jupiter energy in your third house does represent effort and discipline and expansion as it pertains to communication, writing, how you communicate, knowledge, siblings. You might even go into business with a sibling, for example, travel with a sibling. Third house is short distance travel. So Jupiter going to Capricorn, you can expect those themes to start to rear its head in the latter half of November, and really manifest over the latter half of this year and next year as well, and into 2022, especially with Saturn being there for like 2 years. So with that being said, expect to feel really empowered and financially abundant during this month, just with all that second house activation and first house activation, feeling really confident and empowered from within, from a soul level as well as a physical level too. So with that being said, comment down below your Halloween costume this year if you're dressing up, and head to my Instagram at AstroKit for more astrology content, and I'll see you Scorpios in my next video. Hey Pisces, so let's get into the month of November for you and talk about what November has in store for you. So in the first timestamp of this video, I talked about the major astrological events happening in November 2020 and the major themes of the month. And so we're going to get into how these collective events, collective themes manifest on a personal level for you Pisces risings. This is for Pisces risings and sidereal astrology, so you're probably like a tropical Aries rising if you're watching this. But if you're still unsure about your rising sign or your sidereal rising sign, head to the chart calculator down below. So this is more accurate for rising signs, or you can watch it for your moon sign if you feel compelled to as well. It's also relevant there. So let's get into it. So I almost said Neptune. November is about transformation. November brings the mind these themes of transformation, change, power shifting, and also this major theme of just extremes as well, this theme of expansion too. So let's get into what this means on a personal level for you. When it comes to your chart, we're going to look at your chart, see what's going on, see what's activated. November is Scorpio season starting on the 15th officially, so those themes that I mentioned earlier are really magnified with the Scorpio archetype. So we can imagine that Scorpio archetype being really strong in November. So to start off, November 3rd, Mercury goes direct. So finally, as we speak right now, Mercury is still retrograde, but by the beginning of the month in November, it goes direct, and that's a huge relief. Communication is more fluid again, it's more harmonious, less confusion and delays. And then also Mars goes direct on November 13th. So both of those planets have been retrograde. Mars has been retrograde, causing havoc for the past month or so, or almost 2 months. And so it goes direct in November. All the planets will be direct in November, so we feel that burst of positive energy thrusting us forward, having more focused energy, decisive energy instead of that like stagnant, groggy energy we've been feeling with all of the planets retrograde throughout the year. And so that brings me to the first event, which is Jupiter conjunct Pluto. So Jupiter will be conjunct Pluto November 12th, and this is a really huge event in astrology in general. It rarely happens, so I think it happens every several decades or hundreds of years or so, but with Jupiter conjunct Pluto, you have probably the most benefic planet in astrology, Jupiter, expansion, luck, fortune, beliefs, and one of the most malefic planets of Pluto, which rules transformation, rebirth. It does rule extremes, death, etc. So having those two planets conjunct really represents this huge amplification energy, this huge expansion energy of transformation. And it kind of takes more of a positive transformation spin, I would say, just because Jupiter is in the mix, and Jupiter does give that benefic energy, whereas if it was like Pluto and Saturn, it would be more malefic energy. But this huge transformational, power shifting culmination of energy of Jupiter conjunct Pluto in the same degree in the same sign of Sagittarius is happening in your 10th house of Sagittarius. So on November 12th, when this degree or this conjunction happens, you're really going to feel it in your career. You're going to feel it status-wise. You're going to feel it in terms of your public image, your reputation. And this does represent a shift of power for you, a shift of status. So what I see happening for you, Pisces, is whatever your status is right now, wherever you are right now in life, professionally especially, how you're perceived by people, it's going to shift in November quite drastically, quite unexpectedly, with this Jupiter-Pluto conjunction in your 10th house. So you can expect, I would say, like maybe even a surge of gaining some sort of power position in your career, maybe unexpectedly, or maybe something you've been deserving for a while, where it's like you go from maybe being someone who is an employee to a business to owning a business, or somebody who goes from assistant to manager, or something like that, where maybe there is a promotion, gaining some sort of favor from someone in power. 10th house rules authority figures, so you might gain like a step up the ladder, or like a social connection that boosts you higher in your career or status-wise, etc. And so I think I forgot to mention, this is for sidereal Pisces rising. Did I say that? You're probably an Aries rising watching this if you're used to looking at tropical, but I just felt the need to say that because Pisces rising in sidereal has a Sag 10th house, so you don't get confused with the signs there. But anyway, so with this Sag 10th house, it does trigger amplified gain in status and career with the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction. So that is what is happening around like I would say like you'll feel it 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, like the middle of the month there. But that brings me into Scorpio season. So Scorpio season this year in sidereal astrology starts on 11/15 or November 15th. The sun moves into Scorpio, meaning the sun moves into your 9th house because your 9th house is in Scorpio. And Scorpio season this year, I feel like the theme of change and transformation is even more magnified than ever. Just because Jupiter is going to be conjunct Pluto, and then we just have all of this energy when it comes to change in 2020 in general. But for you, this is happening in your 9th house, so this means you're transforming your beliefs and your purpose. So you do have, I believe you have the South Node in your 9th house right now. So you've probably been really on this moment, or you've been in this energy of contemplating your spiritual beliefs, getting really deep into spirituality, maybe learning different languages, taking courses, etc. And so with the sun being in your 9th house, you're going to be focused on travel, expansion, learning, for example, taking on a new language, a new course, a new class. Your awareness is really focused on your spiritual awareness and what your spiritual consciousness is, and investing a lot of energy into your knowledge. I feel like we all invest money into things that we find valuable, but specifically in November, you might be investing a lot of money or time or effort into just gaining knowledge, reading books, studying astrology, studying tarot, studying anything you find interesting within the spiritual realm. And you're going to experience a dynamic where you do transform those beliefs. Maybe you transform your perspective on certain spiritual beliefs, and some of you guys might be traveling as well in November, making travel plans. Maybe if you want to travel during December, January next year, etc. Travel is really magnified with 9th house energy as well. So your awareness is focused on those 9th house things, but specifically I feel like those 9th house things will be transformed for you in November. Some of you guys might even move locations, or like I said, just go on a vacation or something like that where you do travel. So the new moon is also on that same day. The new moon is it's in the last degrees of Libra. on November 15th, but usually it's kind of unique because it's cusping like the last degrees of Libra and the first degrees of Scorpio. Usually it would just be a Scorpio new moon, but since it's kind of like on the cusp there, you kind of feel that new moon energy in your 9th house as well. So with this new moon cusping your 8th house, 9th house, you're going to feel it mostly in your 8th house. So what this means is that there's this new sense of values being triggered in your life, and I feel like values and belief are really triggered with this new moon mid-month for you. So you might be initiating new values in your life, initiating a new perspective in your life. I feel like with the North Node and South Node being in your 3rd, 9th house axis, your life in the past few months has been kind of about that already, but you're really going to feel the transformation of it in November, where you do transform essentially what your core values are, what is the foundation that you stand on, what are the values that you base your relationships on. 8th house does indirectly deal with other people, it deals with other people's beliefs, so really initiating and integrating those values and beliefs into how you approach your dynamics with people, relationships, romantic relationships, etc. And so that brings me to the last event, which is Jupiter moving into Capricorn. So Jupiter has been kind of dancing between Sag and Cap throughout this year because it's been retrograde and stuff. But it officially stations in Capricorn November 20th, and it stays there for the next year. And so what this means is that it's going into your 11th house. So this is a exciting transit for you, where Saturn just moved into Capricorn in your 11th house, then Jupiter joins it. So Jupiter and Saturn working together is more so benefic energy, although Jupiter is debilitated in Capricorn, but having those two planets work together in the same house, especially like the 11th house, does represent you gaining new social circles, gaining status, financial gain. And your relationship with the public is really emphasized in, I would say, November for you, and how you communicate your beliefs with the public, and being a leader within your social circles, being a leader within whatever career you're in. There's this kind of theme of status and status recognition and being recognized within your social spheres. When Jupiter, your chart ruler, you're ruled by Jupiter as a Pisces rising, moving into your 11th house, and you'll be more focused on your long-term goals, focused on your desires. 11th house also rules money. It rules money in the sense of like windfalls of money or large lump sums of money. 2nd house is more so like increments of money or consistent money, but 11th house is like that huge lump sum, right? So in November, you can expect to be maybe gain an opportunity where you do make that much money, or some sort of financial gain through other people, through your social networks, and even social media as well. I see a lot of you guys building your business, building some sort of small business, online business, Etsy shop business in November, because Jupiter going into your 11th house of social media does trigger that sense of online business and putting a lot of effort into your online endeavors. Saturn rules effort, so that's what's going on for you in November. So in the month of November, you can expect shift in status, gain in status, gaining knowledge, and really working on that small business of yours, or if you want to start one, it's a good time to start one as well. So that being said, tell me in the comments what your Halloween costume is this year, if you're dressing up. At AstroKit for more astrology content, and I'll see you Pisces in my next video.